then I started thinking, like, everybody talks about enlightenment, but what is enlightenment? And then, of course, I heard people, talking about near-death experiences and seeing the white light. And then they're shoved back on planet Earth, and they have that feeling of wanting to go to that white light. Why? Well, again, when you understand that sunlight is all the colors, then you have to understand that this is what they're seeing. They're seeing the purity of energy because it's all that integrated frequencies that create that white light. And without having unity in your body, mind, and spirit, how can you create that unity?
Welcome to the hard part. Today, I'm bringing in a color energy expert who spent over 2 decades of exploring, educating people of the power of the color. Welcome, Susanne Murphy. How's your day lately?
Well, my day is always colorful and bright, Fiona. So thank you for asking. I hope yours is too.
Yeah. And how is your journey of sharing the power of color with you lately?
Well, my journey, like I said, is always colorful and bright. And what I love about life is it's so full of color. And of course, knowing the color language helps me every single day. So when it's rainy in Vancouver, I know I can bring in some yellow for my own sunshine.
Wow, that's amazing. Especially this kind of weather recently during the winter. I bet a lot of people are feeling a little bit of gray that needs different colors of stimulation. May I know what's your life before knowing the power of the color? And what exactly drew you to the world of discovering the power of the color?
Well, I could tell you I've always loved color. As a young child, I used to color vibrant hues in all my little drawings as a child. And my parents bought me crayons. And I remember when they bought me a pack of 24 colors, I was just ecstatic. And I remember lining them up in the rainbow and including magenta and turquoise. And there was a silver, a bronze, a gold. And that was my coloring palette. Fast forward, when I was in my 30s, I opened up an art store because I always have been artistic. And so my love of color has been through my whole life. And when I had my art store, of course, I discovered when I colored things in vibrant hues, people would buy them. And I understood their need of color. And one day a woman walked into the store and she told me she had this color bath product. And I went, "What's color bath?" And she said, "Well, it's a product you bathe in and you reap the benefit of the color frequency." So I was just intrigued with that because I love color. And I said, okay, I'd like to sell it in my store. And when people would come in and buy it, I started asking questions. And I discovered that people were choosing colors based on enhancing their mood. So that was fascinating to me. So fortunately, because I do believe in the synchronicity of the universe, and I couldn't renew my lease. And the woman told me that she was moving to Texas, who sold me the color bath product. And I said, well, I want to join the team. And so Color Energy hired me. And this is what was fascinating, being an artist and knowing that people were drawn to color and how much I love color. I didn't understand the power of color until I joined the Color Energy team. And all of a sudden my world became more exciting because I found out words that were associated with the colors. And so then I understood red is passion. And this is why, for example, we already understand that red is passion. And we know that orange brings us joy and yellow is a mental stimulant. These are things I think on a subtle level we already know, but when you're aware of the color language, you can go to the next level.
Wow, there are so many things I wanted to unfold in your conversation. First, I wanted to know, I already knew are having this psychology background, but how is your psychology background related? Did you change from artist to psychology and to color expert, or?
Well, when I was in university, I did take a psychology class. I'm not a psychologist by any means. But when I joined the Color Energy team, the founder of the company, Inger Ness of Norway, she was a kindergarten teacher. And so she had the knowledge of how young children acted. And because she was studying about the chakra system and the association to the chakras, all of a sudden she saw that red children were more grounded, and they were the ones that were helping children across. She tells a story about how she took her kindergarten class on a field trip, and as the children were crossing a brook, it was the red children that were holding the hands of others who were scared to cross the brook. And there were some children that were jumping in the water, and there were some children that were just displaying the different emotions of having to cross this brook. So she started studying color's response and how it relates to our innate intelligence centers. Now, we call them color intelligence centers. Metaphysicians call them chakras. Mm. It's the same language, but we want to raise the awareness more on that psychological level so people understand that color is intelligence. We know that when we're in a red room, our heart rate goes up, our blood gets stimulated, and we get more excited, versus when we're in a blue room, our heart rate goes down, we feel more sedated and calm. And this research is done around the world. They're painting classrooms in different colors and studying the children. So we have this innate understanding of color, but when we're surrounding ourselves with a color, it's not just psychological, it's also physiological. And so we understand that these factors will kick in and have an effect on our physicality. Now, if you don't mind, Fiona, I would like to take you on a Color 101. How's that?
I'm so excited. I'm so ready for it.
Well, this is the way I explain it to everybody. Our main energy source is the sun. Without the sun, we wouldn't exist. And it was Sir Isaac Newton in 1666 that held a prism up to the sun and discovered that the light refracted into the several colors of the rainbow. So in the white light of the sun are all colors. Now, when we get the sunlight, what happens is the sun's rays go through our eyes and into our pituitary gland. And our pituitary gland, which is our master gland, then breaks down the frequencies of light, so the red stimulates our adrenals. And this again follows the whole concept of chakras, where the root chakra governs the adrenal glands, the sacral center, the gonads. So the orange vibration goes to our gonads, the yellow to our pancreas, the green goes to our heart, the blue our thyroid, and in our brain, the indigo and the violet frequencies stimulate both our pineal and pituitary glands. So every color, when it's broken down, stimulates a different endocrine gland, which then secretes the hormones that creates our well-being, but it also creates that connection emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And this is what people have to understand, is color does affect us physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
Wow, that's very well explained. Even cover the question that I'm about to ask. But in summarize, can you put in a short, easy way to understand that what does that mean? Color carry the frequency and the intelligence, and how does that affect our life? Like as you explained, when we go into a blue room, we feel more calm. What about you're saying this red person has more grounding energy? How does that? How would you summarize that in a easier way for people to understand the color intelligence?
So everything in the universe is frequency. We turn on a radio and we hear the music, but we don't challenge the fact that it's all about wavelengths. It's all about frequency. Every color carries a frequency. And in fact, one of the charts that I developed many, many years ago is a chart that goes into all these different characteristics of color. So you can easily see on there that the red energy carries the frequency of between 630 and 770 nanometers. And this is the whole thing. Everything in the universe is frequency. So when we see the color red, it gives off this frequency that, again, these vibrations, these frequencies actually enter into our physical being and affect us. And that's why when we wear a certain color, we feel in a certain mood. Now, I have to ask you, have you noticed when you wear colors like red, orange, and yellow, don't you feel more vibrant? Don't you feel more outgoing?
I feel more energized and more sexy about myself.
Absolutely. And, you know, here we are, a civilization that dawns on a lot of black, and black actually isn't a color. But that being said, black voids energy from getting in. And so people are more hidden. But on a vitality level, they don't have as much energy as people who wear those vibrant hues. And this is what I love about teaching people about color is when you understand you're lacking energy, now you know you have to be wearing the reds, oranges, and yellows. But wearing the color is only one way to get the frequency in, because color that you wear is like a filter. When light comes in, the color that you're wearing acts as a filter, and so therefore that color filter then energizes us that frequency. Does that make sense?
It does. Oh, that's making things a lot more clear. As you mentioned, like for instance, red help us to get into more excitement, passion, and in terms of the wavelength, would you say that it's more of slow wavelength, like longer and slower? How is that order?
So there's the wavelength and the frequency. And so it depicts sort of, you know, like violet has a very high frequency, right? Where red has a very low frequency. And it is more physical in nature. So there is more science behind that. But I want to even further go into the fact that, have you ever wondered why an orange is orange or a banana is yellow?
That is a good question. I have no idea. I never thought about it. I thought it born this way.
Well, again, it's about the frequency. The light of all the colors shines on that fruit or vegetable, but the color that gets refracted is indicating what frequency is within that food. So when you see an orange, it is the orange energy. And also plants are frequency medicine. And this is why certain herbs and certain foods will affect us in these different ways, because it's all about the nature of the color that's in that plant medicine. Okay? So this is why when you're needing red energy, then you should be eating foods that are red in nature. When you're needing orange energy, you need to eat foods that are orange. But when we think of plant medicine, what is an essential oil? It's the essence, the liquid essence of a plant. So lavender oil in my world is a violet medicine, right? Because the flowers of lavender are in that violet hue. And when you look at the healing properties of the lavender oil, it's identical to the healing properties of the violet color.
Wow, that's amazing. Inspiring me into another question of, since red, as you mentioned, different color corresponding to a different emotion. So red is related to emotions such as passion, and either the positive side is passion, excitement, and the negative side would be angry and resentful. And how does that frequency influence our physical being? Like for people who like to wear red all the time because they're lower frequency, would they be able to influence surrounding others even more because their frequency? Because that's what I heard. And from another teacher, they mentioned about like purple, they can be for the positive side would be peaceful, and for the negative side would be depressed. And for those people who are in purple, since they're in a kind of frequency, be easier to get influenced by others. Like how does that work? Does that relate to color energy as well?
Absolutely, but we have to break it down so people understand more about the principles or the science behind it, because otherwise it could be overwhelming. But because we contain all these energies within us, and because every endocrine gland in our body is stimulated by a color, if we're lacking a color in our life due to lifestyle choices and other dynamics, right? Because we have to think of all the things that literally affect us in life. Okay, we know that, for example, the food that we eat is energy medicine. We know that when we have a balanced diet, the doctor has always said, eat a variety of colors on your plate. It wasn't because it looked pretty. It's because of the science behind the colors of the plants, right? And so therefore we have to have that color palette in our diet. But if we're not getting that color palette, then of course we have to look at other modalities that we can bring in, those frequencies that we need. Now there's also things that are affecting us. We're like right now, we already know that EMFs are affecting us. And EMFs are from cell phones, television rays, radio waves, and they're bombarding our aura. And our aura is our protection. And in fact, I always tell everyone, within our aura, we are molecules. Without an aura, we would be free-floating molecules. Okay? But because our aura keeps our physical matter intact, within our aura, we are all these different color energies that are literally patterned, so we create a physical form. But what influences us is color. And now I have to go back into science. It was a Professor Fitz-Popp that actually discovered our cells within our body radiate biophotons, but also absorb biophotons. And biophotons are both light receptors and light transmitters. This is why sunlight is our main energy source, because it has all the colors, and we're literally stimulating all our cells with light quanta. Okay, but again, there's factors that are always influencing us, and we're electrical by nature. And so therefore, this is why we're, 70% water and our brain is 80%. But if we don't drink enough water, our aura shrinks because our electricity, our electromagnetic field, all of a sudden becomes smaller because we don't have enough water to expand our aura outward, right? And then this is why we can be affected by our surrounding and other people. But when we understand we need that light quanta, then we do everything in our power to create it. And water is literally blessed with sunshine. And so therefore, when we drink water, we're getting all the light quanta as well. Okay. So there's so many things that influence our energy dynamics, from the food we eat, and even our thoughts are color coded. And we were talking earlier about the fact that you had an aura scan on our BioPulsar technology, and you can see the colors of your aura because those colors tell us your story. But it also tells us where the frequency is lower, where the frequency might be higher, and we can teach you then how to balance your energy.
Wow. Please, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, it's always about balance, and most people are failing in life because they're not drinking enough water, they're not eating the right fuel. I tell everyone, good fuel is live food, right? Where everything that is inorganic is not fuel for our body. So therefore, we need to eat, the red apples and the yellow bananas and the oranges and, all these different colored foods, because it vitalizes us on that color frequency level. And when all colors are equal, we create white light. And that's what we're always trying to achieve in life as a spiritualist, is that enlightened state. But you can't create white light within you if your root chakra is weak of red energy, or your solar plexus is exploding with too much yellow energy. It's about a balance in your energies. Does that make sense?
It does. And I want to expand more on, I want to expand on a lot. For the first one, as you mentioned, that's why I drank some water to remind myself, what do you mean? Like, if we lack of water, our aura field become more limited. Does that show in the scan as well? And the second is that you mentioned that we need to have all these 7 colors balance in order to create the white light. How does that work? What does that coming from? I never heard of that.
Yeah, well, it's common sense, but unless you have a teacher who could teach you this, then you don't understand this, because, you know, as a spiritualist and first starting out, you know, 30 years to delve into understanding more about who I was as a spiritual person, nobody ever told me that. They just talked about balancing your chakras. And I thought, great. But, you know, going into the science of it, and because I have that scientific nature, I don't just read a book. I read a book and I apply it, because if I don't apply it, then how do I know it's real? And there's a lot of people who write, but they don't practice necessarily what they preach. And there's a big difference in that. So as I started working with the colors, I could see how it affected me in so many ways. Like literally, I delved into it. And, you know, my first challenge was working on my throat chakra. So I was bringing in so much blue vibration that all of a sudden I had epiphanies in my life that were related to the blue attributes. And so I understood this is what I needed to understand to raise my vibration in my throat chakra. But if you don't have that consciousness, how can you raise it? And then I started thinking, like, everybody talks about enlightenment, but what is enlightenment? And then, of course, I heard people, you know, talking about near-death experiences and seeing the white light. And then they're shoved back on planet Earth, you know, and they have that feeling of wanting to go to that white light. Why? Well, again, when you understand that sunlight is all the colors, then you have to understand that this is what they're seeing. They're seeing the purity of energy, because it's all that integrated, you know, frequencies that create that white light. And without having unity in your body, mind, and spirit, how can you create that unity? You can't. If one chakra is weak, that means another chakra is going to be in excess. Because as I mentioned, you are molecules within your aura. And when we go back to the water subject, if you think about the fact that when water goes through a hydro station, it creates electricity. It's the same thing with us, that we need water to create our own electricity. We are electrical in nature. Our cells, you know, contain that electrical component. And so when we don't drink water, how are we creating electricity? Right? And I always know when somebody's dehydrated, and this is a fun fact, and this could, you know, be things that happen to you because they happen to me. But do you ever give off shocks?
Give off what? I'm sorry?
A shock, like you touch somebody and all of a sudden there's that electrical shock. Have you ever experienced that?
Before, yes.
Okay. Well, that's indicating you're ungrounded and your red energy is weak. Okay.
I thought it's because it's dry.
Well, it's more than that. And this is what people have to understand. When people are, you know, full of electricity, you can give off shocks, right? But it also has to do with groundedness. And we shouldn't be giving off shocks, just like, you know, you shouldn't be, you know, sticking your finger in an outlet and getting a shock, right? That's not how we should be operating. Rather, we always need to be grounded. And so if our, you know, energy is too full of electricity, we need to ground ourselves, which means we need to be more responsible in our red energy.
So I understand that you're saying if we are giving out shots to people, that means our energy is too electric. Does that mean I drink more water because like water creates more electricity in our body?
Yeah, and I'm going to take back a little bit of that, because it could also be that you're dehydrated, because again, we got to remember that there's more than just, you know, one energy within us. Right? That we have these different vibrations. So it's typically when your crown or your brow chakra is very high, but your root chakra is very weak. Okay. And what affects your root chakra is the amount of water you drink.
What affects our root chakra is on the amount of the water that we drink? Wow.
Yeah. Because again, if you understand the root chakra, it's all about the basic essentials of life. It is our survival energy. And what creates our survival or existence is, the quality of food that we eat, the quality of water and the amount of water we drink. It's the amount of rest we get that our body needs, because our body repairs when we sleep. So there's all these basic essentials to life that we need to be doing for our root chakra to be strong and for our energy to be balanced, because if our energy isn't balanced, then that's when we can give off the shocks.
Understand. So I observe a lot of people where, for me as well, when I first step into spirituality, I can feel the ungroundedness that I'm having here. So that's why I happen to have this chance of using the technology that your company offer, the
BioPulsar.
BioPulsar technology, and it's a phenomenal technology that shows every color within my chakra. I'll put it up here as an example so that people will be more understand of what are we talking about here. I feel like we can talk about color energy all day long, but if they don't have this visualization of like what exactly the color energy looks like in our aura field, there are so many profound knowledge just with that scan. And would you like to share a little bit more on, like, first, what layers of aura that BioPulsar is scanning? Because from my knowledge, I know that we have actually seven layers of aura, and we have emotional body, we have mental body, physical body, and spiritual body. And so I'm just wondering, like, what level of the aura is scanning. And I know that in that scan, there's mind, body, and spirit. Can you also explain that to the audience so that they could understand more, and whenever they go to you for the BioPulsar, they could dive a little bit deeper?
So let's go back to some of the information that you were just sharing, but also further back into the science. Because remember how I said our cells radiate biophotons, and these biophotons are color-coded. So our system picks up the energy of our organs, and it's the pulsation of our organs that create our most physical layers of our aura. But every color that we see is connected to a different layer. And so when we look at the layer that's closest around our body, it's called the physical layer, and it's connected to the root chakra and the red energy. So each layer, and again, on my chart, I put down what each layer is, but I also put down the color connection, because that's the most important, not calling it the astral layer or the physical layer, but actually saying, well, geez, my red layer is weak, or my violet layer is very healthy and strong. It's looking at all that. So when we look at the colors of your organs, it tells us what frequency that organ is resonating. Okay. That also tells us the connection to the chakra issue. So if we look at the fact that every organ or every health issue is connected to our different chakras, right? Then we know what chakra we need to work on when we have a physical issue. Every chakra is connected to different organs. So if we look at the root chakra, it's connected to our spine, our blood, our rectum, our anus, our legs, our hips, okay? And so those are, and our adrenal glands as well. So those are the organs that connect to the root chakra. So if we see any of those organs out of balance, we know it's going to affect the root chakra, right?
Yes.
So when we do a BioPulsar scan, not only can we see what organs are influencing that chakra, but we can see the color of the organ. Now, in New German medicine, they talk about every organ has an attitude or a psychological disposition. And this is why we know all our health issues are connected to emotional blockages, right? So, and we have to go beyond sort of some linear and limited thinking that, it's said that the liver holds anger. Well, the liver can hold any emotion. So on our system, I recognize if the liver is angry when I see red in the liver. Because as you mentioned earlier, red is either passion, or on the negative side, it's anger, right? So we're looking at every organ and the color frequency it resonates So we could then start to work backwards, because what creates an illness is often, months or years of programming of a negative attitude. And the negative attitude could be something as simple, oh my goodness, that scared me, right? And then every time you go and say, that scared me, all of a sudden you're starting to block your lungs. So over a period of time, all of a sudden your lungs might not be as strong and your breathing might not be as deep. So then when I look at your lungs and I see that it has orange, then I know it's that emotion that is stored in your lungs. And then what we need to do is feed the lungs the green energy, which is connected to the heart chakra, to get the lungs back in balance so you can breathe deeper. And maybe we throw in an affirmation, we teach you how to put, and I brought my oils here, maybe you put your green energy blend and lather your chest, and I love this stuff. So all you do is put several drops into the palm of your hand, right? And each bottle has an affirmation on it. So the heart chakra is all about prosperity and abundance, right? So by simply rolling this on our chest, or actually rubbing our chest with that green energy, what we're doing is we're feeding our lungs, our heart, and all our respiratory system with the oils that actually help to soothe the heart chakra. And in this formula, for example, you have eucalyptus, pine, and cedar wood, which are all those nature oils that just help support that heart chakra. So when we do these things, because we have a weakness in one of our organs, and we do the affirmations and we start to reprogram our mind, that we can actually say, I let go of any anxiety or fear or anxiousness that I feel whenever I feel that type of stressful situation. Does that make sense?
It does. I actually watched your video online like from a few years ago that you talk about the aura and how it related to our organ. And it's actually like different organ has its own color. That's for the healthy color, and it's not like so. Can you explain more on where you can look at my charts, my aura photos, and explain to the audience for a different organ, we have different corresponding colors, and how does that correlate to each other?
So it's the color that helps to heal that organ or that chakra, but we have to treat the organs a little bit differently in relationship. Okay. And that becomes more on the assessment side of things. But for example, when I look at your aura, right away we see this yellowy orange color above the head. And this is telling me that you're a very creative individual, because that is the color of creativity. Orange is always about that creativity. And it's a very soft orange, so you bring in your intellect in regards to your creativity. So you would be what I would call a creative intellect. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Now, above your head, we can see that you have this magenta plume. And magenta is that color of spirit. It's a very high spiritual color. So I have a feeling the reason why you started doing these podcasts is because you are coming from the heart. And that is that pink energy. Somebody who wants to help people on a service level. They want to raise people's vibration so people see the beauty in life. Does that make sense?
Wow, that does. And like, I feel like I'm like naked in front of just like my intention, my words can be lying, but my aura cannot be lying.
Yeah, exactly. And if we look at the fact, and I'm just looking over at your aura picture more closely.
Yeah, I'll
we
put
can
it
also,
back here.
Yeah, when I look at your spine is identical to the bloom, like the color that's coming from your core consciousness here. So this tells me that sometimes you forget to take care of yourself. Rather, you think that spirit's going to do all the work.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I have a lot of friends, they took BioPulsar as well. And they have this color of gray, and from the video that you show, it's a lot of people that have gray, that means they're dehydrated. And I thought having that pink color, it probably means I'm more vibrant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you even have some green and blue that I see above the head. So this tells me you've got a lot of things going on mentally. Now, I know that this picture is not today, but nonetheless, at that time, there was a lot of things. So sometimes you can be a little bit scattered with your thoughts, where you need to hone it in and create more focus. And let's just see where your chakras were at, because that even tells us a bigger picture. So we can see that your throat chakra was the weaker energy center, yet you talk a lot, right?
I actually took this, for the audience to know, I actually took this BioPulsar scan back in May this year. And at the time, I was going through these lessons of speaking of my truth, because I had a little bit of conflict or argument with my friend. And I feel like I was holding myself back from what I truly feel. So I was having this suppression. So I wanted to improve that. And I started out with a lot of podcasts. So my podcast is actually started this year around like April or so. So to improve myself. And before, I thought my root chakra is pretty weak. So I intentionally put a lot of emphasis on improving that. And I feel like this scan, it's amazing how it shows like my progress and improvement.
Yeah. And when you do regular scans, then you have something to measure by. And that's one of the things that I love, is that when you have awareness of your energy, and that awareness includes where you need to focus and where you don't need to focus. Because sometimes we put focus in an area, and it could be, resultant of our career or what's going on, at home or, with family and friends. So there's dynamics that influence our energy. But when you understand, where you want to create that focus, because ultimately, if you shy away from where you're weak, then you're going to have life circumstances. We've all heard of karma, right?
Yeah.
And karma is where you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and yet expecting different results. You have the power to change your karma. When you know you're weak in an area, unless you change it, then the same life circumstances are just going to keep going round and round and round. You can break any karmic pattern by having a consciousness of your energy. But most people, they don't understand their energy. I hear this all the time, where people say, oh, I thought my root chakra would be stronger. And I'm looking at them going, no, I can see you're not strong in your root chakra because of your physicality, right? It's easy to assess people in regards to their chakra flow just by looking at people. But now we have technology that proves it. Okay. And so with that technology proof, it becomes more accepting, because it's not me being biased saying, hey, this is an area that you need to focus on. Rather, I can say, okay, according to our technology, this is what it's picking up as your energetic weakness. Right? And so now we have that tangible proof. So I'm always on our technology, because I want to see where I'm at all the time. I want to go, okay, did I forget about something? Where I'm at. Now, I'm a little older than you, so I hope I'm more balanced than you. But that being said, a lot of people, as they age, they lose contact from their root chakra, because their physical body starts to become weaker. It starts to deteriorate. However, it doesn't have to deteriorate fast. So when you know what the basic essentials of life are, and those are the building blocks of your root chakra, I do everything in my power to keep my root chakra strong. So this way I don't lose vitality. And I laugh, because I'm like the ever ready, bunny. I keep going and going and going and going, and people go, my God, Suzanne, like, you're always full of energy. You're always full of life. Well, yeah, it's because I work on my root chakra. I have that internal power. Ever since I was a kid, I loved red. And in fact, I was going through my a photo album with my mom, and there's little Susie as, you know, a 5-year-old girl wearing her red skirt, and there's little Susie at age 6 wearing her red jacket, you know, and red shoes and red tops. Like, I always gravitated towards red. It was a color I understood as a young artist that gave me that vitality and that energy to keep going, right? But I'm not scared of passion. And, you know, again, there's other dynamics. I'm an Aries, which is red energy. I'm born on a red day. My name resonates a lot of red. I have a lot of red within me. But I also know as I get older, I need that red energy to keep my vitality strong. Whatever you're doing in life, you have to fuel yourself with the right chakra fuel, the right color energy to get to where you want to go. And this is why people often fail. I hear, oh, I want a loving relationship. Well, I put them on our BioPulsar and I see that their heart chakra is weak. Well, how can you attract a loving relationship when your heart chakra isn't balanced? Right? It has to be balanced in order for you to actually get somewhere in that chakra. Does that make sense?
It does, it does. And there are 2 questions. I hope I'm not throwing too many questions to you at once. So one of the question is that since there are so many color in our energy field, in our aura, I know that, as you mentioned, the different color has different vibration. Does the vibration, like, can you actually have the body sensation to feel that vibration? For instance, whether the vibration is higher, it feels a lot more expand or a lot more lighter, or do you have that? And can you feel that in one person's aura field? Yeah, I'll start with that question first.
I can see it, I can feel it, and I can share with you. Because when we're looking at the aura, it's kind of like thermography in hospitals. All colors have different temperatures to them. Red is the most warm, where violet is the coolest. So when I also look at people's auras, I know the frequency in regards to that. And so if an organ is red, usually it's red hot to the touch. So, you know, for example, if you... I'm just trying to think of an example, but if you have a pain or a problem somewhere, often if you feel it, it will feel warm, right? Wherever there's inflammation, we will see red in that organ or that body part on our technology, and right away I can see whether or not it's red hot to the touch, okay? Versus if I see an organ on the BioPulsar that's a high frequency color, that could indicate that that part of the body is cold, and often we'll see white, okay? And these are things to note for yourself, because if you have a pain or problem somewhere, then touch it and feel whether it feels hot to the touch versus cold, okay? And again, there's different dynamics that we have to look at, you know, in regards to our energies. So, but that in a nutshell is one way to assess. Also, we can look at the context of the energy in regards to the strength, okay? So how can I explain it? But wherever the body looks like it has a little bit of padding, then that's indicating good health. Wherever it looks like it's undernourished, then right there you can see that there's going to be a weakness. So for example, with myself, my throat chakra is an area that I'm always concerned with. I talk for a living, so I'm constantly using the blue energy for communicating, right? But this is where I've also had a lot of damage. I've broken my jaw. When I was a young child, I was tripped and my 2 front teeth were smashed. I've been in a couple of car accidents where I had TMJ so bad I couldn't even open my mouth. And because I've been working on my blue energy for decades now, I'm doing that to keep it healthy. I'm working on all my chakras, okay? You don't stop working on them, but when you know, when I have pain in this area, then right away I'm working on my blue energy. If I have pain in my hips, I'm working on my red energy, right? Wherever you have a physical symptom, then that's where you need to work. You have to associate it with the chakra. Then you have to look at the frequency of it. Is it hot to the touch? Is it normal? Does it look good? You know, you have to start looking at it. So there's ways you can self-assess. Now, we often go to practitioners like myself who have technology so we can assess these things without having any judgment. Okay? Because sometimes we don't accept our weaknesses and our strengths or our excesses because we're a little bit oblivious to ourselves. The hardest thing to do is read yourself, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's good to seek the counsel of somebody who sees you from the outside in versus you looking from the inside out, right?
Yeah. Getting examination from profession is the most important, but I do understand that a lot of audience, they are just like me, I'm curious about the knowledge of it, the rationale behind it. So I want to know more about it before I dive in deeper with the profession. As you were mentioning, our organs, hot and cold one. So in here, I'm looking at my chart, my aura right now, and it feels like, as you mentioned, the white color is more of like a higher energy, higher frequency. But I remember you were saying that if that higher frequency color in certain area, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily good. Like higher energy in some area is good, but not all of it, right? Can you explain that more?
Yeah, and this is the hardest thing to have people understand, because there are different aspects of reading the aura. There's reading the aura physically, and then of course there's reading the aura energetically. Okay, so when we read the aura physically, as I kind of brought it up earlier, it's like reading a thermography scan. Okay, we're looking at where the heat is, where the coolness is in the body, to help us understand what's going on. Then we look at the color. What does it mean emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, to help us decipher the conditioning that is there? So there's two things we have to note when reading the aura. And of course, there's a lot more dynamics. But, you know, when I look at your aura picture, the colors from your shoulders up are all your brain frequencies. So we're actually measuring 8 brain parameters, so I can understand how you're thinking at that moment in time. When I do a second scan or a third scan, I start to notice if there's patterns in your consciousness or your unconsciousness, right? Just as I will note if I'm seeing patterns in your body, because this has been fascinating to me. And because I've done over 20,000 scans and I'm looking at this scientifically, I've accumulated a lot of data. And so I know that, you know, we do have ebbs and flows to our energy. So for example, you know how one day you wake up and maybe your hips are feeling a little stiff or sore, and then the next day you feel fine, right?
Yeah.
That's the ebbs and flows. And there's can be reasons as to why your hips got stiff. Maybe you weren't exercising enough, you weren't moving your body enough. Maybe the day before you were, you know, sitting a lot, and so your hips got stiff, right? And then you woke up in the morning and right away you're walking and you're doing things, and so your hips aren't going to be as stiff. There's a lot of factors that influence every one of our organs. And in fact, I tell people what you ate in the last 24 to 48 hours actually has a big influence on your energy today, because it's fuel for your body. So if yesterday you ate a lot of junk food, you know, and we're sitting on the couch watching TV and, you know, having too much sweets or too much potato chips or whatever it is, the wrong fuel, and then today you wake up and you're not feeling like you have enough energy, well, you got to take a look at how you slept, what you ate, all these different parameters. I can go into somebody's home and look in their cupboards, and I can tell you what kind of fuel they're feeding their body, right? I'm looking at the labels when I go shopping, and I just heard this, although unconsciously I knew this. When you shop in a store, like a grocery store, shop on the outside, because when you shop on the inside, all those aisles are usually the food that is crappy. where when you shop on the outside, that's your fruits and your vegetables and, your different produces and proteins that your body actually needs. Right? But as soon as you start shopping on the inside, that's where all the canned foods are and the pre-packed dried foods. And, here's another fun fact. In North America, our cereal contains 40% more sugar than in Europe. When I hear these things, I go, don't eat cereal, because it's so full of sugar and it's almost like eating cardboard half the time. Start your day with good fuel, like have eggs in the morning. And I actually boil eggs and, make scrambled eggs in the morning that I can have for breakfast. And I make enough that it lasts me 2 to 3 days. So I love cold eggs. Right?
Same here. I usually eat whole food, healthy, like original food that I can see the food itself as a fuel of my body. As I eating more and more that organic whole food, my body become more energized, more sensitive in many ways. If I start eating junk food, my stomach just goes not really good. So that brings me to another question of thinking, okay, so right now I'm having all this great food and to maintain my physical health. However, sometimes we still like having this different chronic pain or some sort of pain from here and there. As you said, like wake up in the morning, my hip feel stiff. And I know that our physical body related to our emotion. Does that apply to every situation? Like, so I become more of like paranoid of myself, of thinking, okay, right now I'm having this shoulder pain. Maybe I'm not expressing myself enough. It's paranoid. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the courses I teach is body language, because when you understand the body, and for example, the shoulders are about taking on responsibilities. So we have to look at what responsibilities are we taking on that we don't like. That's why it's in pain, is because there's an attitude about what we're taking on, right? And so we have to explore that. Now, of course, again, because I have the BioPulsar, I can understand the attitude by seeing the color that's in the shoulder. And more often than not, I see gray in the shoulders with people. And, when we look at how people are sitting, often they're sitting like this, especially when people are on their phone, right? Then they're
like my aura.
Yeah.
I have the gray.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's because if we're looking down, then we start to pull our posture out, right? And so it will affect our shoulders. And there's other dynamics I look at. I look at how people stand or how people sit, because when you sit cross-legged, what happens is your whole body will shift because your hips are being pulled out of alignment. So I can look at anybody's shoulders and see if they're out of alignment. That will actually affect the hips and the shoulder because it's all part of your atlas, right? So the shoulders are about taking on responsibilities. But when I see gray, it means that that person has taken on so many responsibilities. Now they're exhausted, right? And it could be that they're denying some of the responsibilities as well. So it could also work on the other way, where if they're not handling things in life very well, right? So they're denying it. I always tell people, run towards what you fear the most, because if you avoid things that are happening in your life, it's only going to get compounded. So if there's something that you're putting off and you're denying it, you're not taking on that responsibility, then we will get pain in the shoulders, and we'll see it in a color like red or possibly gray. Well, then you have to confront what it is that you're not taking responsibility of, because if you just keep denying it, it's not going to fix the situation. And I've learned this in my life, that, whenever there's been something happening, and, I remember the first car accident I was in and what was going on in my life at that time. I was in a relationship that was not healthy for me. And so therefore, I ended up with lower back pain. Well, the lower back is how you're feeling supported. If you're not feeling supported, then you're going to end up with with that back pain, right? As soon as I got out of that relationship, guess what?
You heal automatically. You don't have to go to a doctor.
Absolutely. You know, now, of course, I did other things. I was doing exercises and other things that were helping me get through that situation. And the more I exercised, then the better I felt about myself, that I could get out of that relationship. But the hips are related to your root chakra. And if you're not feeling courageous, which is a red attribute, if you're not feeling inner strength, which is a red attribute, if you're lacking those aspects, then how can you change your situation, right? Because then you're feeling defeated already before you get started, where if you know that you need to make changes in your life, red energy is the energy of practicality. It's also your vitality, your courage, your inner strength, your inner confidence. It's all about your self-identity. It's who you are as a red being. And this is why we talk about the intelligence, because when you're strong in your red intelligence, then you will be courageous in life. You'll be able to face things head on and not be scared. But if you're in your indigo and you're letting your indigo get hold of you, then you become fearful. Well, then you need the red energy to get out of that fear. Does that make sense?
It does. But you mentioned a lot about red energy and then groundiness. But you also mentioned a lot about the importance of balancing different colors. So I'm just curious on, like, for instance, if you look at the aura, is there like any, like, we'll say perfect aura or color, like how can a person know that, right now I'm maybe 80% in a good shape or 90%, like, yeah.
Well, I always tell everyone your aura is beautiful because it depicts where you are at any moment of your life, and that's awesome. Because we are like colorful butterflies. We need to have these different color energies going on, otherwise life would be very mundane. Whenever I see an aura that is just, say for example, a solid green or a solid blue, I feel like kicking these people, going, where's the other colors? Like, you're not using your full potential. You're just showing one color. And this has been hilarious too, because those people that I've seen in green, like have a lot of green, are usually very passive. Okay. And similarly, when I've seen an aura that's solid blue or solid orange, again, people become so, what I call OCD in that color intelligence, that they're not using their full potential. They don't know how to pivot because they're only thinking from one perspective, right? We need to integrate all the colors. We need to know all our energy centers. We need to understand the characteristics that are attached to each one. Because if I wake up every day and I go, okay, what am I going to do today? Like, I knew we were going to have a conversation today. So I prepared myself with blue. So that's why I'm wearing a shade of blue. It is a darker blue. It's a color. I always wear blue when I'm doing interviews or I'm doing classes. That's kind of my go-to color. But I do other things to support myself based on what I need that day. But nonetheless, I wake up every morning and I go, okay, what is my day today? And today I knew that I was going to be talking and that, we were going to have this conversation. So blue was going to be very important to me. Okay. But I also know that my day starts very early. So, when I come home from work, just so you know, I have myself a herbal cup of tea. And this is actually a cold brew. I make myself a pot of tea. I'll have myself a cup of hot tea at the time, and then I'll convert it into a nice brew. So this has a lot of red elements in it. That's why you see it sort of in the red hue. I even put a slice of red apple in there, just again to give me some of that red energy. And I drink that because, of course, I want to come off not only being able to communicate my words, but I want to be able to communicate my confidence in what I say. That's very important. So every day I wake up and I go, okay, first and foremost, is there anything going on physically that I need to work on? Okay. And before I even get out of bed, I'm doing my stretches and I'm stretching my hips and, stretching my legs and I'm, moving my ankles and I'm getting my red energy moving, right? And I have a set exercises that I do in the morning before I even get out. Then after I take a shower, I'm spraying my auric field. That's one of my best products that I absolutely love. I cleanse my aura because when you take a shower, you're actually purifying your energy by rinsing off any negativity, especially if you've done dream work, right? If anybody has any, dreams that they want to just sort of release after they wake up. Then I spray myself with aura cleanser to make sure my aura is sparkling and shining, so I'm ready to go forward with my day. Then I take my red essence and I put drops on the soles of my feet. And I love this. I love the affirmation. I am strong, right?
I am.
Yeah. So I start my day with also red vigor because I know if I'm going to have a long day that I'm strong enough to last my whole day. Okay. So I kickstart a lot of my days using red vitality. And then because I'm eating protein in the morning, protein is red fuel. And if you're in doubt, again, go online to our website, colorenergy.com, pick up this chart because it's a great chart that goes into all the foods of every color. So you learn that the red energy is about protein. Orange energy is not just your orange foods, but it's your liquids. The orange energy is about your water system. The red energy is about your physical strength and vitality. The yellow is about your mind. And so it's a lot of foods that are yellow in fiber. So I've broken down all the colors of the food, all the gemstones, all the herbs, everything you can think about in relationship to color is on the front and the back. This is really good if you want to understand the color language and the chakra system. This took me 10 years to put together.
Wow.
Okay. I read hundreds of books. I studied, I took courses, I studied online, and I put together all this data. But again, it's based on my research because there's a lot of things that people sometimes don't understand. When I use the verbiage of the color, it's the verbiage of the color. A lot of times people say the wrong word associations to color. And this is why sometimes affirmations don't work, right? Because you're not talking the language of that color. And so therefore there's lost in translation, right? And so we have to make sure when we're saying, an affirmation of prosperity, we're working with the green energy. We're saying, I am worthy of receiving abundance, right? My heart chakra is, Now, there is some association to blue, but it's more about the financial security because you have to be, investing your money, which is blue energy, to watch your money grow. So first you could work with the green to bring in that abundance, and then the blue energy to take the money and not just blow it, but actually secure it so it becomes an investment over time. So, this is important that we understand the hierarchy of the colors and how they can help us in the different areas of life, right? So we have to think in terms of color.
Basically, every color serves its purposes, and it depends on what kind of stuff that we're doing today and what kind of feeling that we are lacking of we need to enhance on today. So we put on that color to help us to enhance. And I also know that different individual, we have different particular color. As you were mentioning before, that because I know that a lot of us, we want it to be balanced and we want it to be very colorful in all aspects to maximize ourselves. But in fact, we are just one individual being who are probably born naturally as like either yellow energy or whatever energy you are. Like, how do we utilize that color of ours and, to maybe we meet some other people with helping us to complement, to make up the colors that we don't have? What's your perspective on that? Can you explain more on individual color as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love the questions you're asking because it really takes us down that rabbit hole of understanding color more so. But we do have a color test that is an online test. And for anybody who's watching this, if you go to our website and you use the coupon code CEPT50, you will get 50% off the color test. And it's an online test that you complete. We send you a token once you purchase the test, and you answer 140 questions. It's 20 questions for each energy center, and there's specific questions that if you are connected to your red, there's certain questions that you're answering that would actually dictate to us whether or not those are strong attributes that you have. So every question is connected to a color frequency. So at the end, when you finish answering those 140 questions and hit send, you will get back a beautiful little color table that tells you how you are thinking, acting, emoting, believing through your innate intelligence centers. That was the first thing I learned before I got the aura technology. I learned how I thought on a regular basis. So that's one component. How do you think through your energy centers? Now, the BioPulsar technology is taking an energy scan of every organ and gland and then bringing in the physicality of those organs into the chakra dynamics, because we understand that every chakra is connected to an endocrine gland and a series of organs. But there's more behind that, because every part of the brain is connected to a chakra as well. And every chakra works with different systems. So like I said, there's a lot behind the chakra systems that, I can't.
We don't have enough time for this.
We don't. And
unfortunately.
Everybody has to understand my knowledge base is decades. This is what I've studied. I've studied people. I've taught thousands of people. Everybody has to do the color psychology test first, because then I can understand more about who you are as an individual. The BioPulsar is all your history until this moment in time. And it goes into, aspects of hereditary, which also does influence your chakra somewhat, but you could actually be born totally different than your family dynamic. So there can be, or there may not be, that correlation. So once you understand more about who you are, then you can understand more about how you need to influence your own dynamics. So when I did the color test, and still to this day, my green and my orange are weaker because I'm not emotional by nature. I'm not an emotional person by nature. Now, that can vary, because now we talk about different dynamics. When a woman is ovulating or on her period, her orange energy power increases naturally. Okay? And so therefore there's different dynamics that go on. And this is why when women are ovulating or on their period, they're going to be more orange in nature in their personality. This is why sometimes the mood swings come in, because if we're imbalanced in the sacral center, then we'll be crying one minute, happy the next, sad the next, angry the next. It's that volatility of that orange energy, right? So there are things that take place that can affect our energy, and also the food we eat, the amount of time we're on computers, all these things affect our energy dynamics. So the more you understand that computers, for example, are the indigo frequency, then if your indigo is heightened because you're on the computers all the time, then this is why you can suffer from depression, anxiety, fear, and doubt, because if you're on the computer all the time and it's naturally enhancing your indigo, then it can cause an overabundance of indigo frequency within you. So this is why it's paramount that we have to understand the chakra system, we have to understand color intelligence, and we have to have the baseline understanding of our energy. And this is why doing the color test, doing the BioPulsar scan, tapping into who you are on a frequency level will keep you understanding more about who you are and what your energy needs are any minute of the day.
And can you share some tips before, like, people have the chance to go into by the testing and examination? Can you share some tips on how can we examine ourselves as what kind of color by maybe our action, personality?
Okay. So when you meet a red person, for example, they'll be dynamic. They'll be very confident. My partner is a red person. When he makes a decision, he's very firm about it. And it's very hard for him to change his mind because, again, he's already weighed out the pros and cons and he'll come to a conclusion. Red people are very practical, okay? Orange people are very dynamic. They go with the flow. It's that water element, right? And so they're very much into the feeling aspect of things. Does this feel good to me? They love tasting food. They really like that dynamic of that sensual experience in life. The yellow people, like myself, are very mental. I need to understand things from that analytical perspective. But because I'm also a violet, I understand the spiritual component of things. But for me, it's teaching people, or rather, it's proving to the world that the spirit world does exist. And using tools like the BioPulsar, we can prove it, right? Because it's a very analytical tool, because it is a computer device that, is measuring frequency. It's all
it's
about
more grounded.
Science. Yeah, it's more science, right?
Yeah.
Now, so the yellow loves to learn, and they're very optimistic by nature. They're like a ray of sunshine. Okay. Now, the green people, my sister's a green person. I always think about people in my life that are the different colors, but green people are very nurturing. They're the ones that, always want to make sure that you're feeling good. How are you, sweetie? And I like to exaggerate a bit because we all have people in our life that really are these energy dynamics. But the green people are the natural nurturers. They're the huggers. They'll give you that hug. And they're always checking in with family and friends. How are you doing? Right? They're the ones that will be calling you all the time. The blue people are the leaders. They like to lead people because they're very organized by nature. Often they'll be in those positions of leadership, right? And they're the financial wizards. Usually numbers are very strong for them. Okay. And blue people, trust, loyalty, devoted. They make the best friends because they will always be faithful to you. Okay. The indigo people are the reformists. Okay. They're the inventors. They're the outside of the box thinkers, but they're the reformists. The blue people are the rule makers. The indigo people are the rule breakers. Okay. They'll challenge the old dogma. They'll say, wait a minute, when was this law made? Because it certainly is outdated. So they are the outside of the box thinkers. Okay. Now the violet are the visionary. They're often the spiritualists, but they could also just be the person who's very inspiring. Whatever they believe in, they'll be very inspirational. And the violet and the orange people are also very creative individuals. So again, they're, artistic by nature, but in different ways. So that's in a nutshell. And of course, when you hear me say all these attributes, you can go, yeah, that's a little bit of me and that's a little bit of me. But it's when it's strong in you where, if we say that every color intelligence has 300 attributes connected to it, if you're truly a yellow, then you'll exhibit a lot of those attributes on a daily basis. Versus if you're a little bit of red, sure, you can be passionate and excited and a practical thinker, but it's not the way you would think normally, right? And this is when we go into the color intelligence. It's understanding you are all colors of the rainbow, right? But you use them differently for different circumstances, but you still have one or two energy centers that are your leaders. They're normally how you think, how you emote, how you feel, right? How you believe. And then there's also areas that you might be weaker in. And in part, you could be weaker because maybe, your parents didn't have strong energies in those centers. Maybe, your teachers weren't rounded in those energies. Maybe the friends you chose didn't have those energies. And there's certain aspects that we have to understand. And this goes into the relationship dynamics. Sometimes we seek out people who are totally different from us. And sometimes we seek out people who are like us because we're comfortable with those energies. And this is why we need to have friends in all the colors, because then we can grow and learn from them. And in our color coding system, only 2% of the population are red people.
Oh, wow.
Okay. But think of it, we're going closer, or we're going more, we're evolving more, into the computer age, where before, if you think back 100 years ago, there was probably a lot more red people because we had to farm our land, right? We had to use our physical energy for survival. Now, we have machines that actually, yield our crops. We're not planting by hand anymore. Everything is computer generated. We're losing contact with the red energy, and this is why people sometimes get more into their head and their higher energy centers, because they become ungrounded, because they're not maintaining their red energy strong enough to actually be balanced in all their energies.
That's amazing. Just to summarize a little bit, that you just cover my two questions of whether we need to find other colors of friends that to help us to make up the color that we lack of. And that is true in a sense that we are more comfortable with our own color, but at the same time, we might want to have some different variety of the colors of friends to help us to make up with the quality that we don't have in nature. Suzanne, thank you for sharing so much on the color energy and how it's with BioPulsar, the technology examining our current state and also our color energy in our personality, in our thoughts or our action. And to summarize, what are you currently offering that you would like to bring attention to the audience?
Well, I'd like to offer everybody, if you want to explore more, we do have our color test that you can order online at www.colorenergy.com, and it's the Canadian way, COLOURENERGY.com, and explore all the different tools that you might find helpful for you for balancing your energies. And for anybody who orders online, if they use your name plus the number 10, then they'll get 10% off their complete order. Okay. So that
Thank you so much for giving our audience this privilege to have that discount.
Absolutely. And, we have to really explore, like, I wouldn't be the person I am today if I not explored who I was as a spiritual being, but also at the same time explored who I am as a physical being, my emotions, my thoughts. We have to dig deep to really understand who we are and not deny or hide any side of ourselves. Sometimes, again, we have to run towards what we fear the most. And for me, it was my fear of tapping into my emotions. I always repressed. Whenever I felt that I wanted to cry, I'd say, suck it up, buttercup. You can't cry, and only sissies cry. And then I realized true strength is when you show your emotions. And when I understood that, I thought to myself, I'm going to feel things now. I want to feel things. I want to open my heart, and I want to feel the depths of life. I want to feel love. And we can't always be scared that love's not going to be reciprocated. We just have to love unconditionally. That's what the heart chakra is, loving unconditionally. And if we're blessed enough that people love us, then that's awesome that the give and receiving of love is there. But sometimes love only goes one way, and that's okay, because we should love everybody in our life. And if people can't love us, that's their problem, not ours. Because as long as we're kind and loving ourselves, then of course people will love us. But not everybody can receive love, so they'll actually push us out because we're trying to love them on a level that they're not ready to accept yet.
Wow, Suzanne, I am so touched with your the sharing of your love, your definition of love, and how you are thinking of giving the unconditional love. Because for me, I have to think about my feeling. Like, I have to really feel into my emotion. I'm not always a feeler. And I try to suppress my feelings and rationalize it. We're making it disappear in a way that's making it like no big deal. And I'm sure probably a lot of audience in these days, they have the same problem. So that's why we have so many people having this need to go therapy and having this health issue because suppressing from emotion. And to reiterate that you said about, it's not really about people whether they are paying us back with the love, but it's about how we give and just focus on giving and unconditionally. This is how you are as an individual being. It doesn't matter of whether that person is giving us back the love that we maybe expected. It's about dropping the expectation and assumption and just give unconditionally. That is beautiful sharing of you, and that is actually what I've been learning, trying to practice in my life to do. And it can be hard too, because like you have this fear, we have this little trauma inside of ourselves, not wanting to get hurt. And I think that's a great reminder for all of us. So and come back a little bit. So where can the audience find you? But I'll also leave the information down below. But where can the audience find you?
So colorenergy.com is, my home base. But I also work outside of Gaia Garden on Broadway. They're at 2672 West Broadway, and I do events there. So if people sign up on GaiaGarden.com, their email list, then you'll see when I come in to do classes. I also offer online classes. So again, if you sign up to Color Energy's newsletter, you'll be kept abreast of any classes that I teach. We have to keep expanding our consciousness, and the only way we could do it is by reading or, watching, obviously, podcasts like this. I'm very appreciative of that because I get to share my wealth of knowledge with everybody who you're connected to, because we do have to colorize the world. If we only think in black and white, what a boring life we would live. So we have to expand our consciousness in color. So I appreciate, this forum that we could, share with your people, more about color. But please sign up to my classes, and sign up to GaiaGarden.com, sign up to ColorEnergy.com, and I'll keep you abreast of anything that's going on in regards to education. And there's all these tools that I've talked about that are at your disposal to help balance your chakras. And I'll even share with you another one of my favorites is white light. And this one's all encompassing, and all you have to do is just spray above your head and just breathe in the aroma of all the essences that are of all the colors. And it's just so delightful, and it just supercharges all your chakras all at once. So explore these different tools and, just keep learning and growing. That's all we can do here in life, is learn more about our spirit. And another thought I'll just share with you. People say to me, I want to be more spiritual. I want to be more intuitive. And I go, great. Work on your red energy, because you're put in a physical body, which is your red energy, and your spirit and your soul can only shine if you take care of your body, because this is the vessel our spirit, our soul can live in to experience life to the fullest.
Wow, that's amazing. As a spiritualist, we always think about to open the third eye and open our crown chakra, but not realizing that groundingness is so important, and it's only with strong rooting that we can bring all our creativity and all that intuitive, open it up to a brand new lens of the world. And for the people who are just testing water to try to see like if there's any like offering or seminar or first entry for beginners, do you have any workshop like that, like 1-time or 2-time workshop or online seminar?
Well, out of Gaia Garden, as I mentioned, we have classes that are going there. So if people want to join a class live with a group, we do a series of chakra workshops, and it's something I'll be doing online as well in the new year.
Is it going to be live, and how many classes are there?
So when I do the series of 7 chakra workshops, it's one a month over a period of 7 months. So this way, what you're doing is you're embracing, working with that energy for 1 whole month. And that's a lot of fun for people to do that. We also have advanced programs. If you feel that this is a calling for you, we actually have a master program coming up in the springtime, and you can get started right now. And if you sign up online, just so you know, for Black Friday, we're actually doing a discount on our courses.
Wow. Can you expand that even more about?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a couple home study programs, and they're regularly $400, and they're going to be half price for $200.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna make sure that the video comes out before Black Friday then.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. So I have these several ending questions just for the audience. What is that one thing that you would say or done to your younger self?
I have to be honest that I believe my life has unfolded the way it should, and I don't want to have any regrets in life. Rather, I want to think about everything that I have learned has just made me who I am today. And, there's always things that happen in life that, maybe we'd say, oh, I wish I could have taken a different path, or I could have done things differently. But then you wouldn't be here, right? And I learned many, many years ago that sometimes we think about the grass is greener on the other side, but I learned it's just as green on this side. So why think about what could be? Just live in the moment, embrace everything, do the best that you can in life, and have no regrets. No matter what's happened in the past, have no regrets. Always just live in the moment and look forward to the future.
Yes, living in the moment and be present with what's happening right now. And what is that one thing you can suggest anyone to create mind and heart coherence?
I think when you integrate color into your life, it helps integrate that wholeness. And whenever my chakras are resonating with each other, I feel at such an optimal level. And that's what I always want everyone to achieve, is that balance in life. And, I don't want people to wait as long as I did, in order to achieve that wellness. I tell everyone, if I can share with you my wisdom, and that is a catalyst to fast forward you a year into the future, where you can do things quicker than what I did, then that is so powerful. So, to me, it's just never stop working on yourself, and listen to those people who have the knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you so much for today, Suzanne. And with your over 2 decades of knowledge, I'm grateful for you sharing so much on your knowledge within the short time. And I'm sure that there are so many more to dive in with the color energy, just knowing ourselves and also our current status of our aura field and our chakra as well. So yeah, thank you again for coming on to the podcast, and hopefully we might have to dive into even deeper questions if the audience requests for it. So yeah, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for your time, and I will hopefully see you next time.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona, and thank you everybody for listening.